quiet whispers, and over time, it becomes the anchor of your existence. Boom. 9, you become the alchemist. The individuated mind becomes, in Jungian terms, an alchemist. Not in the literal sense, but in the symbolic one. You begin to transform base material into gold, turning trauma into wisdom.
8 signs you have a mind Carl Jung says few people can't comprehend.
Where others see crisis, you see initiation.
YouTube,
Where they run from the fire,
another thing that
you
just
walk
kind of
into
came
a
up on
building
my
that will refine you.
feed page.
This is not
And
masochism, it is transmutation. You don't just survive life, you
I
extract
stopped
meaning from it. This is the true
watching social media in November of 2024. My account, which I kind of started, Spawn Point Alpha, on TikTok was banned,
even if it means unlearning everything you
whatever.
You are not here to play a
And
role,
then
you are here
I went to pick up my son in Georgia, and it's been a nightmare ever since. And then in June I started
You're in a constant battle with your inner darkness.
back up again because this inner push to fucking do this shit while I finished my journal and living through psychological hell. But the thing is that I keep the chosen one or chosen ones or some shit like that really caught my attention when I got back on YouTube to look for my old posts that I made in 2022 or 21, wanting to start this thing. And it's been just wall to wall inundated with that. Fuck. 11:33. I'm inundated only because of how much relevance is in every perspective. And the deepest perspective then claims that really pissed me off keep claiming that it's like the rarest type of mind, or 0.1%. And when they describe fuck, and you can't ever know just how real it is or relevant is for you because you don't know how the rest of the fucking population really thinks. So you have to rely on, already baiting me into just obviously spend time watching this shit for clicks and views, or is it really people seeing a deeper sense of ourselves? Because I've pretty much been kind of in a vacuum, haven't really sat with anyone to even try to understand me for the most part of my life, and it's been rather complicated, fucking a bit too complicated. I've been left alone with these deeper, with my depth, with my full depth. Wives, parents, siblings, church, friends, and I kind of had it all, so to speak, access to everything. For the past 5 years, I fucking just cocooned myself, like shut myself down. Really wanted to become an atheist, just fucking drown my brain so it stops thinking. The guy in Matrix wants to re-enter the Matrix and put back to sleep so he doesn't have to face reality. Except I've always had a deeper sense of reality, and not necessarily just in the 3D sense, but like in the all-encompassing spiritual and psychological sense, and everything was filtered through this like multi-layered system all the fucking time, and like in a deep way too. So it's like it was very difficult for me to explain it. But this shit that I kept fucking having to listen to and deal with always resonates to a much greater degree than I would imagine it does with most, when the examples clearly draw personal life experiences into literally paralleling the ideas or notions that they're describing in these psychological journeys. Even before I got on social media 3.5 years ago, before I started this nothing. Facebook just for family's sake, or you know, I did one dating app after my last fiance fucking decided not to want to marry me after 7 years or whatever. And that was about it in terms of being online and doing this fucking 1 degree of separation kind of connection bullshit, because I always prefer one-on-one, where the medical communication and everything else plays into the whole communication process. There's so much more you could fucking read from a person than the words that they actually say. So this is kind of new territory for me. But in my first round, when I was really self-loathing my existence and wanting to fucking die while battling with God, and you know, being presented with the fuck is on social media, the human nature of this planet and our existence, and just how well misaligned it is from what I believed it to be, and perhaps explain why my journey has been so difficult on this planet. And then I see, you know, people have their inhibitions, you know, are dropped when there's that degree of separation where I could kind of say anything I want because I'm not standing in front of the person. So, you know, even if it's half hype and half truth, it's, you know, you reveal a lot about the subconscious process in that unfiltered way of communication. And that's, you know, I've always had an unfiltered way of communication, kind of where you just fucking say what I wanted to say, just, you know, yeah, no, I don't really have tact, just said what I wanted to say. But to see a society as a whole, and in so many different parts of it, and it all lined up with lots of things that I presupposed in the course of my life, when I was constantly sort of processing my existence and the world's existence and society and humanity and God and all that all the time. And you know, so I kind of freaked me out a little bit, like how much of what I thought was sort of actually, you know, out there to one degree, and another degree, the depth to which it deviated from the norm, or from sort of a functioning, not functioning necessarily, but a smooth operating system that it could be or was designed to be, and all the little ways that society has, you know, veered away. And now 3-4 years later, I'm seeing the course correction that I fucking sort of already solved when I first started seeing the symptoms of what the fuck is going on, you know. So it's kind of maddening just to think that way. That was then, up to November, and that's when I gave it a break. I'm like, fuck this, like this, all the more reason for me to fucking want to die, because I can't like deal with sort of knowing everything that, it's fucking lame to put it this way. I don't even know how to explain it. Either everything happens because I think of it, and then it turns out it starts showing up in reality, or I think of shit that is eventually slated or scheduled to show up in reality in advance, in terms of what I focus on, like my thoughts. Like if I spend time to meditate or like work out a problem, for instance, I'll work it out. All my life I've fucking seen this, and it fucking pisses me off because I'm poor as fuck and I can't take advantage of it. Different reasons, but it just fucking happens. Anyway, oh, fuck it. But now, with this phase, I don't know. Fuck, how to do this. The original thing that I wanted to do is go online and literally find help for myself, or find a group of people that understand me. A few people. I figured, okay, you go on social media, just got to be somebody who's experiencing some of the same shit that I was going through, in a grander scale, including with my boys, my relationships, the narcissism that I was faced with, and many things I understand clearer now, but just fucking a maddening effect on my life, living under a curse, or I don't even know how to explain it, but I just know I've been always turned away from help, or whenever I did seek help, like professional help, like you could literally walk circles around those fools and just fucking have them, you know, feed into whatever thought process that I wanted to sort of dictate them to think of me, right? And it was really, it was left on my own to, okay, dealing with my ADD, for instance, is, you know, just have them prescribe to me what I thought would help. But at the end of it, I didn't want any type of medication because of the side effects. So I've struggled for most of my life with ADD, social anxiety, generalized anxiety, depression, all the time, just a host of you know, everything, and then PTSD, CPTSD, because I didn't understand how to fit in, and why it was so difficult for me to fit in, and it seemed like no matter how much effort I put into it, it never worked out for me like it did for everybody else. And I was constantly being neglected by societal standards, in terms of even having a family who's close, and a church, and being in all sorts of social clubs and school, and still not being able to help find the camaraderie or help that I needed to dissolve some of my problems so I could see clearly the solutions, you know. And that's with me asking for help. So I don't, it felt like I was trapped on this track where I was like in this glass cube, and life just kind of took me for a ride, on one hand, and just I had to witness the shit that it took me through, some good times, some bad times, but it was just that kind of experience. So this Spawn Point Alpha, it's like, if you had a chance to write your own story, is it possible? Does God exist in a way where I could totally grab the biggest, most imaginative, true to earth story, in other words, accounting for all my strengths and growth potential, and accessibility to obviously what I have around me, and the time and age that I was born into, and everything else that goes along with that, but to really upscale it far beyond the potential of my own efforts, right? Because so far I put a lot of fucking effort into fucking losing everything all the time, and so how the fuck can I, like, you know, put like maybe a little bit less effort, because I'm fucking old now, but to at least have it materialize some kind of, you know, net positive way, and force myself through it. And then the bitter battle against God, because ultimately I saw this and I devised this plan. It's great, you know, love it, but then I realized if God doesn't back me on it, I'm fucked, you know, and I'd have to expose myself in the most real way, you know, in the sort of most detrimental sense of the ego, where, you know, everything would collapse. And having contemplated suicide, you know, since I was 14, you know, it's not a challenge that I take lightly, and especially knowing myself, once I make a commitment, a specific commitment, you know, I have the strength to walk it out. And that's one of the reasons why I'm very picky and choosy about the commitments that I make. Yeah. But this is freaking me the fuck out, because it's making a lot of resonating sense, and a lot of what I've processed over the years before I'm not studied, I'm not learned, I'm not read. Like, I don't read books a whole lot. Like, I'll start with Alan Watts, for instance. He's up there. I got a couple of his pamphlets, and I'll read like the first couple of chapters, and it just, you know, the notions just sink, you know, with my way of thinking, and I'm able to process it, you know, and just kind of add it into my thought process, and then kind of fill it. My experience growing up too, it's many things that I, especially psychologically speaking, I self-determine certain things about myself or other people, and always love to study people. Always love to study people. I was fucking 8 years in college, you know, and most of my time I spent the MJ's Coffee little house, and then Starbucks, and every coffee house on planet Earth outside of bars, relatively. You know, just talking to people, and seeing and studying, and doing long-term studies of them too, like how their words or actions or their attitudes match up, you know, years down the line. And myself too, and put markers and shit, like all sorts of like just, you know, weird shit that I kind of paid attention to. And that was my way of sort of seeing things, and I would come up with sort of descriptions of behaviors or understandings that, you know, if somebody brought me a book or read me a you know, published journal or something, even of a study, to me it would already just, for the most part, describe what I already predicted, essentially. Like, it would just verify what I've worked out in my head, you know, years before. I'm not gonna say it's like 100%, but it's like 80 to 90%, you know, and then it really depends on how, with what intensity, and I don't want to say focus, but how encompassing of a thought process I gave whatever topic or idea, that would determine how close I was to sort of generating, you can't even say right answer, but the I guess the average answer. So hearing other people describe how I've already pegged my way of thinking, because I've also, you know, being like self-aware to the degree that I'm always not only analyzing the process outside of me, but I'm analyzing my analytical process as I'm processing the process outside of me. That makes sense. So I've learned to sort of get a moving average on what influences how I process, you know, processes outside of me. To what depth do I go into, you know, to what clarification, and a whole host of things. And then obviously what influences that most is my emotional body, because of the outside circumstances. Like, you have a wife and kids, and the life process that goes on limits the clarity in the head to spend quality time with those ideas. And so the clarity of the future gazing, fuck, I don't even know what you want to call it, predicting, modeling, future modeling. Yeah, I heard that somewhere, future modeling, because that's kind of what it is. You know, how not necessarily accurate, how full it is, you know, how many blind spots are covered, and then how focused it is, you know, how much detail it comes with. And then, you know, kind of sitting back and waiting until and it happens, you know, I have like so many, I started collecting the files now where like an idea or a solution or whatever, and I'll take the first, like, I'll save the first instance of it that I hear of it in, you know, I guess nowadays on social media, like, oh, there it is. Or like, you know, I'll have an idea. Fuck, I had a lot of ideas since I was a kid. And then somebody tells me, oh yeah, you know, that, you know, they have this and that. And like other friends will tell me, you know, and whatever. Like I can't fucking explain this shit. Like it, the bottom line is it's freaking me the fuck out because the principles of the stupid spawn point alpha thing is still the same. Is to me to record my evolution, whilst originally it was really to build $100 million company, and at least that's the headline for it, right? But really to go through a process, and if I'm right about designing the process, then it should and must generate that, kind of like a scientific experiment, right? And on the center of that is free will and God, right? And then you throw in the mixture of the spiritual physics, right, which is all your karmic and spiritual laws and laws of attraction, all these things that humans and Christianity have skirted around in one way or another, but it's still rather elusive, and there's no, you know, conclusive data that this shit basically just have at least one, or, you know, which I'm sure there's others, but more people should deliberately journal their journey in a permanent way for, you know, future record, so that humanity could witness itself and say, yeah, this does work and this doesn't work, and be honest with ourselves so we could correct some of the shit that society is going through, you know, to the degree that we understand and recognize that there's a lot of agencies, and I don't mean fucking legal and American necessarily, or three-letter agencies, but you know, a negative element to this whole existence that wants it not to succeed, you know, and it's devouring us at the marginal difference. So there's a whole lot of things that go into it, but to record the whole thing and make a study of it and get some help in the process, and do basically build myself on the accumulated average of, you know, something like 1,000 people, because at this point I just don't trust fucking anybody, because I guess maybe now I do, since I keep hearing these fucking, gotta figure out who's publishing this shit. Depth Psychology, and then there's C.S. Lewis Jubilee and C.S. Lewis Insights and Wisdom. There's a few like these channels that keep, you know, hitting my nerve with what they're saying, and I have to think it's more than literary entertainment, you know, psychological porn, if you will, you know, spiritual porn, where it's just there to entice you, but there's no reality behind it. And half of them are biblical, and most of them do address biblical principles, and all of them do fucking address shit that I experienced before I even before the computer was invented. And the computer was invented under my feet, because that's what I did study and landed into it early. So I fucking saw the mainstream development of it, you know, as I grew. So it's it's interesting. My entire thing was to take advantage of that, and the more time I spend online, the more it freaks me out how my entire plan that I devised is working for everybody else who started doing it. And 3.5 years ago is when I wanted to launch it. Actually, I'm going to turn 52 in September, and when I was turning 48 would have been my 30-year mark, my 3 decades, sort of 3 separate decades of experiences. And the first, and it was very interesting, the first was physically centered, the second was psychologically and emotionally centered, and the third was spiritually centered. And you learn all these lessons, but it's making the same loop, each with the heavier and heavier physical toll, you know, including kids and relationships and, you know, professional life, whatever that means. But the inner experience that I walked through was more centered around those separate areas. So when 48 came around, I'm like, all right, put all this shit together and fucking write your own story. And I had it laid out perfect, loved it. Psychologically thrilled me because it had all the elements that, you know, I really wanted to pursue as a human being. And then spiritually, I got this inner peace and feeling that even though part of it was deconstructing the church and felt like, you know, going against God in some ways, or the Bible at least, not let's just say the church, you know, and then the physical elements, you know, which is sort of a separate journey, but really honing in and focusing on health in terms of purifying the body. Yeah, purifying it, rebuilding it, strengthening it, purifying it, healthening it properly, deliberately, so that as a vessel, as an antenna, as the bot or the temple, as it were, you know, it's in the best shape so that it could be properly, the alignment is as strong as it possibly can be. So you had all those 3, you know, elements being put into one and taken on a journey. So from 0 to 100 million, because that's what I sort of guesstimated that this project that I would do, like the lab work of a, let's say, 4-year or 5-year university, you know, re-educate myself, forget everything, re-educate myself, and have lab work in the form of a company. And you know, if all the elements are put together properly, there's no reason why it shouldn't work out, you know, or at least have a measure of how close I could have it work out. Perfect. Until doubt set in, until I started comparison, until I got into an argument with God. Because ultimately, it would only work if God's on my side. Whereas I had no proof that he wasn't, except from the past and all the people that spoke into my life, all the key people, like my father, like my pastor, like my other pastors, like everybody else who's always hammered me and never supported me. And that's when I realized, like, I've never a handful of times, a few minutes in my life, do I remember somebody actually sitting down with me and saying, yeah, I support it. Yeah, you should go ahead and do that. Like, especially in the direction that I really wanted to go. Even in directions that I just needed to go to get out of help or something. It's like zero fucking support system, even though I was surrounded by people. And it just seems next to impossible to do something that relies on people, but you just have no proof that people can or will want to support you, because basically nobody really understands me. And that's always been my life. Like, that's a fact. Like, I know people have a difficult time understanding, so I have to always scale it back to like, okay, only present myself to the degree that the person or the company of people that I'm in are, you know, able to interact with me. Because as soon as I go any deeper, fucking people, I lose people. They're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Or they just, you know, can't follow me, and like, I don't know, whatever. Whatever. I just know what I'm talking about. Like, I can't explain it. And you can, I always see that in people's eyes and looks. But there's a few times, you know, if I'm talking on somebody else's subject line, like I'm talking with someone to help them solve the problem, yeah, I'll know exactly how to navigate them to the deepest point of their own understanding, so that they could realize shit about their own conversation that they're struggling to see. And it seems like, you know, everybody walks away happy from those types of conversations. So it's not that I'm not able to converse with people. It's people aren't able to understand me when I converse about myself, I guess. And so it stumps you, because I really need to decide for myself and try to figure out, like, how the fuck is it that I have these sort of thoughts and visions or understanding, but I can't make shit of it, because there's some underlying maddening fucking poison or disease or curse or Satan behind it that won't allow me to fucking activate it or make it real. And so I got into a bitter argument with God, like in my head, but it was God, because it was fucking bothering me. And for like 3 years, like I woke up like sweating, always at 3, and later like people say like 3. I don't know. I fucking just don't know. And at least I can't even tell you the frequency. Fighting demons, like waking up to myself, jolting myself up out of bed, you know, casting something out of somebody or somewhere or from around me in the name of Jesus, or trying to, but it's not, can't vocalize it. And that wasn't my life before. Like, when I had my company, when I worked, when I had my kids with me, when I did my thing, fuck, I put my head down on the pillow. 2 minutes, I was fucking out till morning time, you know. And I was a master sleeper. Like, I fucking knew how to sleep, knew how to work, knew how to push myself and everything. And then all this just changed. And in that 3 years, and even before then, I started just listening to or watching movies, Netflix, every fucking thing on Netflix 3 times over. Then Amazon, you know, just trying to keep my budget down, but watching just anything to quell my mind from processing itself. And nothing worked. And then then it was social media after that. Like, I started like really got on TikTok and let it do a number on me, but all things that, you know, I had personal wounds in real life, especially relationships, especially being misunderstood as a man, and the actual real shit, real life shit that I dealt with as a man, and me thinking to myself, like, what the fuck? Like, how the fuck am I missing it so badly, like, as a man? And that probably was the beginning of my sort of inquiry, is like, am I a man? Or what does it mean to be a man? You know, that's what Spawn Point Alpha is like. Look, if you had an opportunity to start fresh with what you know, to build yourself into a man, you know, how would you do it? What would you take with you, and what are the habits and protocols that you would enlist to build yourself into the thing that you wanted to become. And like, how is it that I missed it? And I did this inventory of myself and the shit that I've gone through, and I have nothing, right? Like, visibly, materialistically speaking, that you could put on a ledger and count it as a positive. Sure, I have a piece of shit car and a place to stay, but nothing that I own, or not like what you would account for. And yet I put so much effort into things. It's like I've done so much struggling to take care of my responsibilities, that by some measure you would say like, oh yeah, that's, you know, he's a man enough, or manish, or close to a man, or, you know, minimally speaking a man or something. But you can't, you know, if you don't have anything to prove it, what fucking good is it? You ain't getting laid. You know what I mean? Like, and I was 48 at the time, looking, okay, went on this website trying to figure out, okay, if I'm gonna enlist the support, which we'll fucking get into that later, you know, of a female entity, which really could multiply a man's efforts in terms of, you know, just so much. But my first question was, okay, is it going to be American or Hungarian? You know, since I'm Hungarian, and it's just a vastly different mentality, or so I thought. And as soon as I got on this dating app, which I've never really done before, I just saw like what like women wanted at my age. Like, you can't really fault them for it. But I thought, like, fucking A, like, I ain't got none of that shit. Like, there's just no fucking way that, you know, like, I'm getting laid. Like, relationship is really what we're talking about. But, like, nobody's gonna want me. Like, no matter how much I struggle, no matter how much of my responsibilities I've taken care of, you know, the draw in life that I got and how I played it out, or how it affected me, or however you want to fucking put it, landed me in a situation where I'm fucking worthless as a man to what a mature woman would say I'm a man. So, you know, and then I started thinking, like, how the fuck did I miss it so badly? Like, and the women in my life, 2 of them really burned me. 3 of them really, on all levels, because I compromised myself for them in a way where I shouldn't have. And even though I gave it my all in many ways, I still ended up being at fault. It doesn't matter. Point being is, I've got nothing to show for it. Well, we'll just backtrack, because I think I was just fucking ranting. Bottom line is, I fucking need to do this at a level that's far beyond me. And even when I argued with God, and I, at the end of the part of the 3 years, was I said, fuck you, I'm not doing this just because I lost my family, my kids, and everything else, because of this process that I'm in, that it's fucking incredible that even the love of my life wouldn't fucking commit without so much as a word as to why, and no resolution, and me spending decades just doing my part and not being reciprocated, you know. And whatever process was coming through me, because at that point I knew that however I set this thing up could benefit a lot of other people, and men too, you know. Once I started realizing that, fuck, like, what I'm going through, I'm getting a heavier dose than most, but like, there's a lot of men that are going through the same shit in different ways, in heavier ways in some ways, and it's fucking maddening. And You know, women are literally getting away with energetic murder and rape of men, and we're not seeing it, not for what it is, you know. And I'm fucking upset, but we'll save that for another day. But the process, this whole thing, the whole idea, and it really started, like, I could really change society. You know, that was part of the element of the whole thing, is devise a plan that could be scaled and multiplied, where we could literally fucking change how society looks like in a number of years if participation, you know, occurs. But it's like everything else. The men need to put effort into it just like much as I did, or needs to. And then when I realized the sort of encompassing effects of the potentially encompassing effects of something like that, and then I withheld it from God, like, no, fuck you, I'm not doing this shit just because, you know, look at the horrible way, you know, like how I lost my kids, you know, like, why, you know, why do I have to suffer this much? So years go by, and it doesn't matter. It's maddening. It's just absolutely maddening what I'm experiencing in terms of my emotions and psychology. And there's no way around this. There's no me escaping this, and there's no coming to terms with what it is without experiencing it. I already know it's going to work, but I do have to walk it out, and I do have to put the effort into it, and I do need to get the support for it, and I don't know how it's going to show up. But this is the beginning of it. And essentially, I'm going to repeat myself several times because it's not going to be an easy start. You know, it's like starting an old car. It's going to take a minute to fire, like a diesel locomotive. Just fucking, it's going to take a minute to cold start, you know. But once it gets momentum, once we start going, and once we understand a little bit, then we can understand a whole lot. I don't want to fucking do this. Like, I'm telling you, time, money, spotlight, like all that shit, like I never concerned me. The only reason why money started concerning me is because it's fucking what women want, and I want to get laid, period. In a good, healthy, emotional, psychological, like fuck your brains out through your soul kind of way. Like, I'm complicated, but I know exactly what I'm fucking talking about. But it I need to take some shortcuts, I guess. I'm looking for people who at least want to understand me. Or I'm looking for a few good men, a few good mammals who could vibe with me 100% in just the smallest sliver of my perspectives. You know, just find something that you totally agree with, and if you could latch onto that and support me in that area, then you will help me build the grander picture, the bigger project, this thing that I'm trying to do. In order for me to do that, think of me as I'm courting you. I'm giving you an opportunity to see who I am, for you to understand, you know, just who I am. And from the get-go, one of the bigger challenges or hurdles is, in order for anybody to do that, it's important to talk about our pasts, and part of this whole project is healing out loud for me. And now it's turned into coming to terms with really who I am, this second awakening. There's you know, two types of awakening. There's or levels to it, obviously, but you awaken out of the matrix in terms of understanding the world around you, the sort of 3D world around you, and especially society and how it functions and how it's manipulated and how it's controlled and all those elements of it, which I never, I was never in it. I've always seen it from the outside, like growing up, like I've trained myself, even like I remember deliberately blocking out commercials unless I want to see them for entertainment, but deliberately not allowing shit like that to influence my mind. And other things like how I questioned and just how I view things all the time. So I never, you know, was asleep. That's why I really desperately wanted to become an atheist or fall asleep to shit, to not have to deal with it or see it the way I see it. That's one. But the other part is waking into who you are, realizing, you know, just the extent of your power as a human being on this planet. And the Bible puts it somehow like everybody was given gifts. Like one guy was given like 1, the other one was like 3, and the other one was 5 or like 10 or some shit like that. You know, so we all have sort of, we're assigned different lanes, so to speak, you know. And once you wake up from wanting to be a slave, like we all mostly are, you know, understanding who you are and then understanding what type of support you can be. Unfortunately, I think I'm the kind that I can't fucking explain it. I need support of a lot of people, a lot of different types of people. And the way I'm going to set up my project, it's going to be, I'm pretty sure that there's fucking versions of it, you know, out there now anyway already, but the overall picture is gonna look like the support of a person that I never had. Like imagine you know, a wife that even when she's unable to understand or comprehend like the future direction, because it's so complicated, and it is, she's willing to support you knowing full well that you're not misleading her, you're not lying about shit. It's just a matter of you're with a person who's just in that sort of logical realm, more ahead, always a few steps ahead of whatever you're able to perceive. So therefore you have to constantly just trust that the support that they need is really to get everybody in that direction, right? Fuck, this would be so simple if everybody was fucking normal. Just, if I had a safe space, if I had the support I needed, just the minimal, just the regular, like, that I know I'm safe in life, and that I could turn to a group of people, and I do trust this, that if that group is 100% invested in me in terms of wanting to see exactly what I could produce, like, even if it's just out of sort of jest or joke, like, yeah, dude, I'll sponsor this guy, I'm just really curious to see, in all authenticity, you know, if he could produce that. But the people really invested in knowing that, okay, I'm here to help in the way that I can, to see if I cannot put this thing together that I'm gonna call it downloaded, because I think I already explained in a previous video, but I'll do it again later. of how I kind of generated this whole idea, you know, after I almost broke my neck surfing and was laid up for a few months, and just the whole process, you know. But in 3.5 years, the haunted regularly, cannot sleep, could not sleep, waking up like, you have to do this, you have to do this, like I cannot explain to you the pressure that I could not get away from not doing this until I totally went fucking numb and just said, fuck you, God, like, leave me the fuck alone, you know, like I can't explain it. I can't. And I still can't get away from it. So, but now it's morphed, because now I do understand the second phase of it, which I already thought of it then, that the importance of it is really more. And then there's a third element, which I'm not even close to fucking willing to disclose because it's way too much. That is fucking life changing. But you know, ultimately, and I think this is the basis of everybody's faith, is that if you really believe in something like God or atheism or whatever your after death prediction is, you're gonna live life according to it, to your death, right? You're gonna run towards death with the expectation of, like, I really believe that that's what's gonna happen after, you know, my body fails. After I exit this avatar, I really expect that thing to happen. Like, when you have that level of faith in whatever you have faith in, you're gonna live your life at the highest level possible in accordance to that, right? Like, I used this example before, I think, but if you're an atheist and you know that nothing happens afterwards, well, fucking A, like, get your body as healthy as possible and make sure it gets planted by a fucking tree, so that at least you know that the process of life and the cycle of life, you're gonna feed one tree or one little meadow the best that you possibly can with your fucking flesh after you die. Like, why burn that shit and why bury it? Like, if you really believe that, like you've done all this good for this planet so far, like, why don't you do that thing? Or why don't you continually do everything the best way possible for this planet, right? Like, not be so damn selfish and have fucking, I don't know, whatever we're wasting our time and energy on, you know, uselessly. Or even more importantly, you know, stealing from other people and taking people's marginal energies, so everybody else is lacking a little bit more, making bad decision, you know, globally, so that we're worse off, you know, on this for the planet. People that believe in anything like heaven or after death, like, they even have a greater responsibility, because at the end of days, you're going to be you're going to be held accounted for, right? And it's very clear on the standards that you're going to be held accountable for, in terms of what you practice, how you practice here, that you're going to have an opportunity to grow whatever measure of stock you're transferring to heaven, in terms of energy or aura or goodwill or community or whatever it is that you understand about the afterlife, to do your best to maximize that for that, instead of, you know, ripping people off. Anyway, I'm exhausted trying to figure this shit out on my own, in terms of running it through my mind over and 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 over again for years now, without doing anything about it, without actually seeing if I can materialize this on while I'm still here. Because not having a purpose is just fucking killing me, or having a purpose and not acting on it is even worse. Not knowing if this is my purpose or if I manufactured it myself, and there's a lot of things that haunt me about my own experience through life up to this point, you know, and I can't, I fucking don't know what's up and what's down and what's right and what's wrong in terms of for me to do, not necessarily moralistically and biblically speaking. The worst thing is me fucking talking and it ran out of battery a long time ago, and I'm still yapping. But it is gonna get complicated. It is gonna get very fucking complicated for me, but I'll keep it simple because I think most people need simple. So I'm gonna court you like just a being. I might be retarded. I might have lost all sort of sensibility of existence in how you'll see how I'm gonna push my. That's not even true. There's plenty of people. There's maybe 3 years ago that would have been my fucking little quip hit, but there's a lot more perspective now that I started seeing again about everything, the course correction that society is doing, and especially the roles between men and women and that relational standard, because I think women did do a whole hell of a lot to fuck up society. And my basic understanding is there's only one thing that humanity could present God on this planet, and that's society, and how we have the choice, like we do with everything else, to design it in a way where it works best for everybody who comes through it. And I think we're failing miserably at that. So even though this is sort of a one-off, you know, like anything else, you know, if it's a good enough virus, then it could replicate in a way where it benefits. And you know, that was one of my struggles early on when I was a teenager, is, you know, imagining that we are some kind of bacteria or virus on this planet killing it, you know, at the rate and how we spread. But we always fail to see and miss the understanding that it's always been our free will choice on how that spreads, you know. And that's why the polarity of things, you know, there's a right and a wrong, and there's a positive and negative. And even though people are so fucking upside down that nobody even knows how to agree on shit anymore, I've learned I don't give a fuck. I'm not here to really agree with anybody. There's a innate sense in all of us that reorients us towards light, positivity, if we clear out the muck, for instance. And then once you see your lane according to your gifting, then even if you're flying upside down, you know, at least you're going towards the light. And sometimes it's necessary to even be flying backwards, just so you can associate with people in you know, going the wrong way, or in real darkness. You know, how to do that, how to recognize people doing that, how to understand people moving around us differently, and still see that we're all moving towards the same unity, focal point of light, or however you want to fucking describe, you know, this temporary journey. Yeah. I'm tired. I'm so fucking tired. And I don't just mean today. Like, I just, after I lived what I lived, like, in terms of societal standards and you know, in relationships and with my sons and taking care of those responsibilities, I'm just burned out. I don't want to participate in life anymore. I really don't. Not if it was designed like this, on one hand. On another hand, I didn't come here for this fucking shit. I did not fucking come to this fucking planet for this fucking shit. And I am pissed. And if I am gonna stick around and if I am gonna be here, fuck the bullshit. It's always been my way of life that wherever I am, I rearrange it to suit me. Not because I'm that sort of fucking ill-willed or fucking hard up on having it my way. But I understood one thing a long time ago, that because I've always aligned myself to really seek the truth, that in order for me to best thrive and control my environment, it has to be set up the way I see it fit, because I always see it in a deeper sense than most other people in it, in that same environment that I'm in. So if I get to have any kind of influence in where I am, then I'm gonna make sure it's gonna be fucking influential. And I'm Generation fucking X. Go fucking hard or go home. Period. I'm fucking sick of the bullshit.